This might be a little bit hard to believe, but 10% of people in the US still don't have access to broadband internet access, and as 20% of constituents don't have access or aren't able to access meetings, city meetings, council meetings, school board meetings, things like that. And it can cause a lot of issues. It can keep people from being able to access the resources that they need or be involved in the community. And so today on Ground Floor Government, I am joined by your regular host, David Plappert, and I'm your producer, Joseph Lewin. And we're going to be digging into some of the limitations of live streaming and a way to be able to get that 20% of people access even when they aren't able to get online. Now, live streaming, a Zoom call or live streaming meetings, that has given access to a lot of people. And so it's extremely valuable. It's really important, but not everybody has access. So, David, why is it an issue in cities when they're only offering a live stream of their meetings?
Hey, first, Joseph, it is awesome to be here. I'm so excited to talk about this. Thank you for the questions. This is the coolest thing. So why is this an issue? So baseline, you can go U.S. Census Quick Facts. Across the board in the United States, 10.3% of households don't have broadband. That includes cellular, that includes satellite. So right out of the gate, 10% of people can't connect to your live stream. And then you build onto that and by other gaps, and you get up to about 20%. So about 1/5 of the average city in the United States has that connection difficulty. And so that's why we're having this conversation today, and that's why I'm passionate about helping this gap, which is quite a major gap, get connected.
Yeah, and so just at a high level, some of the other reasons might be that somebody drives for a living. Maybe they're an over-the-road truck driver, and they don't get access unless they are going to be breaking the law. They can't log it into a Zoom call while they're driving. Or somebody who's out, a landscaper who's out mowing lawns. It can be difficult for them to be able to get on to a live stream. So those would just be two really simple examples, and then there's obviously some other ones as well. So what role then does a live phone call play, like an actual phone call play in the process?
Yeah. So first off, a lot of people say, well, phone is old, it's outdated, it's been around in some form or fashion for 100 years. And I would say those aren't negatives, those are positives because it turns out that with a phone, you can multitask, right? I can be driving and have my phone connected to my car and I can listen. It's what we call a least common denominator, right? So in order for us to view a live stream, I can almost guarantee you have a phone. So if you're driving, if you're exercising, if you're over-the-road truck driver, if you're commuting to work, right? If I'm looking to connect to the widest group of people and to be the most inclusive I can using the least common denominator, that's the telephone. So now, to be clear, we're not advocating that the telephone replace your live stream. We're not advocating for that, but the telephone is definitely a huge destination that I believe is missed with most live streams. Most live streams, you're looking at a Facebook or a YouTube, maybe you do a little bit of Instagram as a destination, but I believe phone is a massive destination for your public meetings to be broadcast on.
Yeah, and most elderly people, which would be a huge demographic of people who are typically have more difficulty accessing, they're going to have a phone, right? So maybe they're living at an assisted living facility. They don't have a computer, they don't have a smartphone, but they have a phone that they have access to. They're still going to be able to join in on a phone call. Whereas if it's only live streaming, most people who are in that situation are just not going to be able to participate, as an example. And so, yeah, the role of still having a phone is important, and a lot of cities recognize that, right? So there are a lot of cities who do have phone systems. So could you explain a little bit about the phone systems that cities typically use at this point?
Yeah, yeah. So we're seeing some Zoom phone systems, which is a great first step, where people are having a Zoom meeting and they give a phone number with a PIN. We're seeing some manned conference lines where cities are actually buying an additional like telephone line, and they're buying conference phones and whatnot. And again, both those are manual. Person sitting there letting people in and distributing the PIN numbers and all that kind of stuff. Um, so those are great first steps. But and then we'll talk more about this a little bit later on. Those are extremely manual processes, A,
Mhm.
and B. Those processes have PIN numbers. Sometimes those PIN numbers change. They require hardware. They're very manual processes. You got to sit there and babysit them, and whatnot. So great first steps. Great first steps to get people involved, though.
So the typical phone system, I mean, the value is being able to get people who normally don't get access to live streams access, right? But then one of the limitations that you just brought up is the fact that it takes extra admin work, right? So let's say that you have somebody from your IT team, or somebody from the clerk's office who's now going to have to actually man that system for every meeting. So it's a higher administrative burden to be managing that. And then a second problem that comes up from what you just mentioned is the complexity for the person dialing in. And so they might have to not only dial in, but then they have to put in a PIN number, and that could be challenging. I mean, I struggle with stuff like that personally. When I'm looking at a long string of numbers, getting it in accurately, I usually have to dial in 2 or 3 times to get something like that to work right. So, it can be a little bit of a barrier as well. Something else that you had mentioned to me before, you told me a story. It's from a different sector. It's from churches that are trying to get access to community members who can't access a live stream. But there's another limitation with some of these toll-free phone numbers, or doing that side of things, where people can end up spending a lot of money and not realizing it. And I know you had a great story that you told me a couple weeks ago around that.
Yeah. So some of the smaller cities, some of the medium ones too, but they've tried items like free conference call. And so if you actually sit and you look at free conference call, they don't charge you. So why are they a public company that makes money, right? They're not a nonprofit. Where they make money is they route these phone calls through high cost centers, and those bills get passed to the caller. Now, the majority of callers in the United States, I believe, are on these unlimited plans with AT&T, Verizon, whatnot. So we don't see much of the bill. But if you look at those who are pay-as-you-go or prepaid type cell phones, they get the excessive bill from calling into these high cost rate centers. And so those people who are already marginalized, the elderly, the low income, those types of people who tend to go towards the prepaid phone, are the ones now getting these bills. So, for example, we've worked with numerous clients, and I can probably, if you gave me 10 minutes, I could probably pull you a solid 20, 30 examples of bills from members that have been over $100, $200, $300 a month just because they called in to a toll-free phone system. So it was free for the organization, for the church, for the nonprofit, whatnot. So that's why they kind of started using that type of system, right? But it was not free to the end user, especially those marginalized people who were, most interested in working with anyway. The highest bill I saw over the course of 1 month was like $550, just for somebody to try and get access to their organization. So, huge red flags there. If you're looking at, a free conference call or a similar type situation, that's how they make their money, routing calls through high cost centers.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking of my grandma in particular. She's not using any kind of. She doesn't have a smartphone. She's not. Uh, she doesn't have an iPad or laptop or anything like that, right? So if she were to access a city meeting, let's say she wants to listen in to like 2 or 3 different city meetings that are going on at any given time, she would be calling in on her phone. And so, if you're phoning in for 30 minutes to an hour once a week, a couple times a week, and it's one of those really expensive areas that they're routing you through, then that can definitely add up. And she's on a fixed income and doesn't have an extra $300, $500 spending on something like that. So that is kind of a hidden cost of doing those systems. So yeah, let's dig in then to Phone Live, your company, and what you guys are doing to bring access to better access to the community and providing much better compliance for the ADA compliance side of things as well. So I'd love for you to dig into how Phone Live works first of all, and then we can kind of go through how it's a little bit different with some of those issues we just talked about.
Yeah, 100%. So first off, our goal is simply just to help people. That's the whole mission here at Phone Live: get people connected and help people, period. And the best way we've been able to do that is every city, county, every government organization, we provide them a dedicated toll-free phone number. And the reason it's dedicated, the reason it's toll-free, is we own all the telephone costs as much as we can for that connection. So the caller doesn't handle any burden they don't have to for connecting to your meetings. Then we connect to your live stream. And so just like your live stream today streams to Facebook, streams to YouTube, you add an RTMP destination that streams to Phone Live. And so the setup to do that, it may sound a little technical, but really it's a 15 to 30 minute setup, and it's a one-time setup. So this is not something that you have to do every meeting. This isn't something you have to do every week. This is we're signing up for Phone Live, get on a Zoom screen share, 15 to 30 minutes. We're connected. That's it. You don't have to log in to Phone Live. You don't have to touch Phone Live again for the remainder of the deal. So that hits kind of on our second major thing, which is automation. So because we're connected to your live stream, anytime your live stream starts, the phone starts, right? So there's no start, no stop. There's no management. You don't have to have a person sitting there. There's nothing to turn on. There's no dashboards that you have to manage during your live stream. Of course, we have stats and stuff you can look at, but you can look at that after the fact. You can look at that 6 months later if you want to. And in fact, in interviewing our customers, 96% of the time, that's the reason why they log in. It's to look at stats. So it's a set and forget kind of system. Never any PIN numbers, again, because it's a dedicated toll-free number. So you give them the phone number. That's it. Whenever you're live, the phone system's live. Another one of our automations, again, that gets rid of all this manual work, is it auto archives. So you have a meeting every Thursday. People call in Thursday when the meeting's live. They hear what's live. If they're calling after the fact, hey, this is the last meeting that was live. Let me play the archive for you. All that's automated. All of that's handled behind the scenes. And then the last magic piece of Phone Live is what we call live notifications. And so you can think of this as kind of like an auto dial functionality. So we help you maintain a subscriber list of phone numbers. And whenever your live stream starts, think of all that automation we talked about just a minute ago. So when your live stream starts, it will auto dial or auto call all these people, and all they have to do is answer their phone, and they're now part of your meeting. So they don't have to remember when to call. They don't have to remember what phone number to call. There's never any pins. All they have to do, answer the phone, and they're part of your meeting. So think of grandma, think of a marginalized person, think of somebody who's maybe a little challenged accessing technology, think of somebody who's driving instead of trying to fumble around, is it the right time? Did I call in too early? Did I call in, they're starting 5 minutes late? Totally forgetting about the meeting. Which phone number is it? Do I have the right PIN number? The call comes in, City of ABC, answer, hey, the City of ABC, we're live. They're there. It's quite literally that simple. So that's Phone Live in a nutshell.
Yeah, and you shared quite a few things that lead into how this helps people get access, right? So if we go back to the over-the-road truck driver, right? They're not having to be paying attention to when one of these calls is going to be. Put a reminder in their phone. Hope that they're in a spot where they're able to like pull off and log in and mess with PIN numbers, or logging into the Zoom call and setting that up. Hopefully they, like I was just driving over the mountains from Virginia to Cincinnati this week, and there's a couple spots where I had phone service, but I didn't have 5G, right? So he got some access there. So then, he's there. This over-the-road truck driver is driving along, and they get a phone call. They answer it, and now they're able to listen in on that meeting. And then another point was not having that issue where it's being routed through and the expenses going up, right? So you're covering that. I said that wrong earlier. Toll free would be toll free, but where they have the conference calls, the free conference calls, you're eliminating that issue where you might possibly be billing somebody. And part of the reason they have a hard time getting access for a lot of folks is because they don't have the resources to go out and buy a smartphone, or they don't have the resources to have broadband internet access in their home, or there's all kinds of reasons, specifically financial reasons, that a lot of those people aren't able to access. So then, if by trying to solve the problem they're paying for it, that doesn't work well. So Phone Live solves that issue. And then the other thing that we talked about was the admin cost, right? So you're cutting that admin cost because you set up Phone Live, and then for each meeting type, and then it's just connected to your Zoom call or your live stream. You set it up, it's connected, and then it's automatically going to push that out, which is making sure that you have transparency. It's making sure that you have compliance, and then more importantly, it's making sure that the people who need to hear the meeting, who need to participate, are actually able to do that.
Yeah, 100%. So one of the things I started going through a couple of years ago in my head is, what does it actually take for a person to watch a live stream? Now, a lot of us take this for granted. Honestly, I believe that, because once you actually start thinking, we have to have broadband, and that broadband has to have been approved. That broadband has to have been localized. Broadband has been run by my house. And then once broadband is run by my house, I have to know that the broadband is run by my house. I have to have the money to get the sign up fees, to get the network set up, the wireless router, whatever that is, the taxes. Then I have to have the equipment to do it, and the equipment has to be up to date enough to handle that. And then I have to have the time to do it. I have to know about it. It has to be, you start going down this checklist, and there's just no wonder why a fifth of the average American population has to connect to a live stream.
Yeah, and then the other thing along what you were saying is, I work at my computer most of the day, but I'm also in meetings most of the day. So sometimes I could schedule out time to hop on a Zoom call, but sometimes, I would say most of the time, I can't, because I have meetings that would be conflicting with that. So obviously I could go back and watch the Zoom recording, but when I'm not working and I'm done with my meetings for the day, the last thing in the world I want to do is log in and watch a Zoom call. And then, so when I'm out doing work on my yard, I can just dial in, listen in on my phone. And then this is a little bit in the weeds for me, but I think just to illustrate the point that even people who have access, like I have access to broadband internet. We have fiber coming to our house, so I have great internet access. I do have a smartphone with 5G, but I'm not paying for an unlimited plan because I don't use anywhere near unlimited because I'm sitting at my computer most of the day, right? So I have a limited plan, and then I have a little bit of property here. So as soon as I start doing yard work and I go 20 feet away from my house, I'm not on Wi-Fi anymore. And so I don't like streaming things on my phone when I'm doing yard work because it uses up all my data. Then I get to like the 20th of the month and I'm trying to get somewhere and I'm directionally challenged. So then I turn my GPS on and I got to go buy more, more stuff. So even for somebody in my shoes who does have access, and I am online all the time, both because I don't want to log into a Zoom call and because I do actually have limited data, then I'm still able to dial in after the fact and listen to that call that's been archived and still be able to participate myself. So it's not only situations where people don't have access. There's a lot of reasons why allowing phone call and then having access through the archive like that is really valuable.
100%. 100%. So I want to paint another possible picture also. So think of a school board meeting. Happens every week, every other week. What if, because when kids register for school, you get phone numbers. For the ultimate transparency, what if we loaded those phone numbers into your Phone Live account, and every time a school board meeting happens, every single parent's phone rang? And on top of that, there's no extra burden to the school board or to the school district. And so you talk about ultimate transparency, right? It's like, hey, we are trying to work with the parents. We're trying to be transparent. In a police situation, in a city, in a county public meeting type situation. I think that's just so powerful that not only can you be that transparent, but you can do it that easily and without any extra staff or any extra, you don't have to have extra people seeing your meeting or remote managing your phone call, and you can have 10,000 parents potentially listening in to your school board meeting.
Yeah, I love that example. That's a really good use case for this, is the school board meetings and giving more access to that, because that is a huge challenge for schools, is that a lot of parents aren't involved. But and part of that could be fodder for a different kind of podcast around parents being involved with their kids, right? But some of it is just because the parents don't have access, and maybe both parents are working, or it's a single mom who's working and they can't come to the PTA meetings, and they can't do that. And so it's often the lower income and marginalized communities that struggle to get access to this kind of stuff. And so really, really important work that you guys are doing at Phone Live to bring more access, to help people who normally wouldn't get access to these meetings. And so I'm really excited about what you guys are doing and the importance of getting more people access, more transparency into what the government's doing. Especially, man, if your kids are going to school, there's a vested interest, and a lot of people, even if they want to be 10 to 20% of people in whatever community you're living in aren't able to be. And so giving more ways for those folks to have access and making it as easy as possible for them to get in front of that is really important. So thanks for the work you guys are doing, David. It's awesome.
It's a pleasure. And that's why we get up every morning. Our goal is to help people.
Awesome. Well, thanks for listening to this episode of Ground Floor Government. These first couple episodes, we're really focusing on some of the challenges around communication and getting access, and giving you a little idea of what Phone Live does, which Phone Live is the ones who are putting on this show. But moving forward, we are going to be interviewing the people behind the scenes that make government work, that make local government work. So city clerks and county clerks and directors of IT, the people behind the scenes who are actually getting stuff done and making the government work, which we all want. We all want a government that's working and being effective. So we're going to be highlighting a lot of those stories coming up here soon. So definitely subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts for more content about ground floor government, the people who are making things work behind the scenes. So David, thanks so much for joining me for this episode, and we'll see you all next time.